Hi, I'm Margaret Lewin and welcome to Margaret Lewin Quilting. Today I want to show you how I go about making half square triangles when I'm not using my half square triangle paper. So stick around and I'll show you how I do it. Hi, I'm Margaret Lewin and welcome to Margaret Lewin Quilting. Today I want to show you how I go about making half square triangles when I'm not using half square triangle paper and when I want to make sure that my bias is not hanging out in the wind. Stick around and I'll show you how I do it. Many of us have seen the method where to make a half square triangle you just sew a straight line all the way around and then cut it and cut it. This is why I don't use this method. If you look at this piece of fabric I have right here, if I go like that, see what that's doing? That fabric stretching. We've got, see, watch, this is our bias. So if you cut this across and across, the tip of your half square triangle, which will be right about here, is going to be full of bias. So when you go to press it, you've got a real chance that what's going to happen is that's going to stretch and your half square triangle isn't going to be square anymore. So I want to show you how I go about doing it. So the first thing I'm going to do is move my wool mat over to the side because we're going to need that again in a minute. And I'm going to grab one of my longer rulers. This is my 6.5 by 24.5 inch Creative Grids ruler. I'm going to set it down here. I'm going to check that's the wrong side, so this is the right side of my fabric. And I'm going to draw 2 diagonal lines on this piece. Now I'm going to use my friction pen, and this is actually going to become my cutting line. So I really don't care if it comes back again, because we all know that friction pens, while they go away, they aren't gone away until after you have washed whatever it is that you've used on them. I'm going to take my 2 fabrics and I'm going to place those right sides together. Alright, I'm a pinner. I like to pin. I've always liked to pin. So I'll grab my pins, and if you want to see how I made this little pin cushion, it's out of a sweater that I got at a secondhand store. I washed it and then I made it so that it would stuff into this ramekin. I can't get it out because it's actually hot glue gun down in there, but I just stuck it in my ramekin and off I go. I've got a neat little pin cushion that is really steady. It's got a nice steady base. That's one of the reasons why I like it. I'll put a link to the video to this so that you can make one for yourself. So I'm going to pin on 4 sides of it. So it's just 4 pins, no big deal. Once I get it pinned, I'm going to take it over to my sewing table and I'm going to sew. When I sew it, I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch from this side of the line, 1/4 of an inch from that, 1/4 of an inch from this side, 1/4 of an inch from that side. Okay, just going to sew all 4 of these straight lines right across. I'm not going to worry about anything in the middle here at all. Okay, so I'm going to go get that done and I'll be right back with a piece that is all sewn. Okay, here I am. I've got my piece and it's all sewn. All right. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, by using the squareness of my fabric, I'm going to make some cuts. Okay, I'm going to cut right through my center both ways. That's my first cut. So I'll get my ruler out. I'm going to make sure that I'm straight. Now where I'm looking to see that I'm straight is across the bottom, across the side, and across the top. And then I've met at the crosshairs here. That's where I'm checking to make sure that I'm straight. Put my fingers down to hold my ruler, and then I'm just going to cut. Remove my cutter. Now I'm going to pick this up carefully, and I'm going to try really hard not to move it at all. I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to lay it down again. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm lining it up here, here, and here, because I want my lines to be straight. And I'm going to cut it right across here. Right through the center. Now it sounded like I didn't quite get it here. Well, I guess I did. All right, now I'm carefully going to lift this up again because I do not want to move this yet. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut across here, right on my drawn lines. And then I'm going to rotate this. Now you can see I moved that a little bit, so I'm going to have to be careful and make sure that I'm still fairly straight, because I did move that just a touch. And I'm going to do 2 more cuts, or 1 more big cut across 2 spaces. All right, let's set that ruler aside now. Now I'm going to grab my wool mat and I'm going to bring it back here because I want to show you a couple of different things. The first thing is, in the other method of making half square triangles, you end up with 4. Whoop, I did miss a little bit here. Let me grab my scissors. This method, you end up with 8. Let me separate them just a little bit. So I've got 8 half square triangles versus 4. The other thing is, you can see that if I tug on this a little bit, let's pull this out and tug on it. These lines are what's going to be off in the wind, hanging free till we get it sewn in again. Watch. Listen to this. That means I'm on the straight of grain. My bias, what can move and will move if I was to press it too much or stretch it, my bias is already stabilized by putting these stitches in. Isn't that fantastic? I just think that's the greatest. Whereas I made these half square triangles, stitched, all the way around the outer sides, all 4 of them, and sliced it down the middle. Now watch what happens when I do this one. Look. All right, now let me do it this way so that you can really see it. You ready? First, there's no snap. Really, nothing. Now watch. Look at how much that can stretch. Let me do it over here too. Look at. You have such a greater risk of getting this block out of proportion by doing it by sewing around the block than you do by making it the way I just demonstrated. So the next time you go to make half square triangles, make them this way. I'm telling you, you'll be much happier. All right, I'm going to flip these over now because I want to work from my fabric side. I'm going to flip these around and I'm going to grab my iron. Just a second. All right, I've got my iron and I've got my wool mat and I'm going to show you how I press mine. Now, you may have your own pressing way and that's just fine, but this is how I do mine. So I line them up. I like to line them up kind of close together because then I can set all those seams at once. Now remember, I've got 8 all at once. Half square triangles. I'm ready to go. So I'm going to press them, which I am moving my iron, so that's more of ironing than pressing. But that's how I'm doing it this time. I should probably just go down with the iron and hold it and then bring it up again. But I like to kind of move things around. All right, I've done that. So I've pressed that, and remember, that's my bias. I'm going to pick up this part of my fabric. I'm going to take my iron, and I'm going to set it down there. And I'm just going to gently, very gently, move it over that seam. I'm going to hold it there for a second, then bring it up, and there is my half square triangle. Now, I started out on this block with a 10-inch square. Let's see how big we ended up with. Now I have not squared this up yet, so it's not perfectly square yet. I started out with a 10-inch square and I ended up with a 4 5/8 inch square. So you can see right here, I've got a little bit of extra fabric going on. So even though my block looks really square at this point, I know that I've got to take this block and I have got to square it up before I go on to the next step. Because if I don't, what's going to happen is my end product's not going to be square. So that's how I go about making my half square triangles. Let me know in the comments below how you go about making your half square triangles. I can't wait to see how many of you do it this way versus doing it by sewing all the way around the outside of the block. Let me know below. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do consider doing that. And don't forget that I'm live on Sundays from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube, and I've got a Facebook group. We've got quite a few members over there. Come on over, join us there, and share pictures of the projects that you're working on. I can't wait to see what it is that you're making. I'll see you again really soon, and thanks so much for dropping by while I showed you how I go about making half square triangles without the papers.